Welcome to Cobb, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharan Raghavan.
So Sharan, it seems like you are in love with your own voice. We started this, now I can call it a rabbit hole, where of marketing side of sales. We first started by saying we'll do an episode. Then during the episode, we realized it can be 2 episodes. And now you've made it into 3.
Right. I think all podcasters love their own voice, right? So we're just becoming podcasters now.
Correct. And it seems you're in love with this topic also.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the third time we'll be talking about it, albeit a different angle to it. And if you have your way, we might have a fourth one also.
I doubt there's space for a fourth one.
Ah.
But the marketing side of sales as a topic is extremely important because the entire idea got triggered because I was talking to a lot of entrepreneurs and the problems seem to overlap, especially the intimidation about GT and then about what do you do when you get GT distribution. And I think this is very relevant, and all these 3 parts, including today's episode, are focused on the practical side of things. So therefore, everything we're talking here is set for immediate execution at the business end, at the store.
Okay, fair. So I understand the importance of it. Now, a simple question that arises from the explanation you gave is that we spoke about 5S
Right.
in the last episode, primarily from a modern trade point of view, where the aisles are accessible to the consumers. Now, since you started with the fact that this whole topic started from intimidation of GT, so what's your point of view? Is 5S still relevant in GT? Is it the same?
So I'd say the 5S is a funnel where you keep losing people at every stage, and that's but natural. No matter how good you are, you will lose a certain amount of people at every stage. And when you take that 5S model and apply it to GT, it becomes, you break them up into 5. With the first 3 are actually about placement, which is the see, scan, spot are about placement. It is initially the category placement and then the brand placement. Now, these 2 are primarily important in modern trade, where the shopper gets to walk into the store and therefore has to see and then scan the category. In GT, these 2 are not necessarily in a brand's control and therefore not exactly influenceable as they are. But when it comes to spot, I think that is where the brand begins to play. Spotting your brand becomes key in GT. And unlike in modern trade, you don't have to be stuck to your category. There are ways for you to stand out of the category and get closer to the shopper. And you could sit outside the category, and you then have to drive interest. Show interest is the next stage. That definitely is there in GT, where you're talking about assortment, the different flavors you have, the SKUs, the right SKUs for the stores. All of these make up the assortment, which drives show interest. And then select is your point of buying communication. It could be price, it could be the message, it could be anything else. Now, this is how the 5S would work in GT. It kind of comes down to 3 S's because those are the only 3 you control as a brand and not necessarily the top of the funnel.
So would it be fair to say, Sharan, that 5S is primarily made from the lens of a shopper who is going to, make purchase decisions unassisted by access to the product? In a GT, too often you go and you talk to the shopkeeper.
Right.
And the shopkeeper then, at least pushes the option that is dearest to him, or he or she thinks is best for you.
Absolutely.
And in some cases, they might give you a set of options. Possibly the 5S starts from there when they present you with an option.
Right.
And If they don't present you with an option, then it is done and dusted already.
So I know the retailer's influence, right? In modern trade, yes, it's largely unassisted, but the influence happens during shopping, before shopping. That's when the influence happens.
Yeah.
In GT, when there's a shopkeeper talking to you, he's got tremendous influence over how you shop and what you look at.
Yeah.
So I've consciously left that out of this, but we'll still talk about it because the major complaint was retailers aren't supporting new brands. So that's why I've left that out, to say the way you get a retailer support could be a complete different discussion. But when a retailer offers a certain set of brands, it usually comes from you asking for something and then you given a certain recommendation. Therefore, I wouldn't say the 5S starts from there. I think this actually comes from the show interest point. When the retailer puts the product in front of you and says, these are the ones that you need to look at, he is basically cutting away the other options in the category.
Yeah.
And gets you to focus just on these products he's putting in front of you. And therefore, he kind of jumps in to the middle of the funnel, telling you, just show interest here. That's the degree of influence. Sometimes what retailers do, when they get a high margin on certain product or they incentivize to sell a certain product, they then push that to the shopper.
Yeah.
That may not be even choice. Then not show interest at all. It is just select, pushing them to select. Just because they will tell them everything to convince them. Yeah, it could be a little bit of show interest, but just pushing the shopper towards select is the goal there for the retailer.
Interesting. In fact, this reminds me of an observation that a lot of the shops, when you go there, you find some products without MRPs, imported chocolates and dry fruits and stuff. At a lot of the stores, they have it kept right at the cash counter.
Right
in front of the shopkeeper, outside of the category, but possibly for you to possibly show interest, because those are the products where the shopkeeper is also showing sufficient interest,
right
because of the high margin that he or she earns there.
Exactly. So when they put it in front of store, what happens is that, I think that's a beautiful point to say, they're bringing the product closer to the shopper. And they're ensuring the C scan and also spot if they put one of the impulse items or anything on the counter to stand out. So C scan, spot, and the retailers are the ones showing interest here. So putting it in, getting it closer to the shopper in GT is pretty much all the game that is.
Usually modern trade stores rely on people spending time and picking up a lot of categories which they did not even think about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, a lot of the general trade stores, I know there are stores, we spoke about them, high-end grocers, etc., where you do your monthly ration shopping.
Right.
But leave that aside, 90% of the stores are where you quickly go in and go out. So frankly, do you have enough time to follow the 5S?
Well, that's a tricky question. Because the entire 5S model was devised with modern trade in mind, because it is a Cadbury property, which we learned there. I think it was British or Australian born. There, the shopper has the time to walk through the store and spend time. In a GT store, in a traditional trade store, the shopper's either out of the store or just in the store and is there on a certain mission. They buy it and get out. So I wouldn't say the 5S is not relevant there, but 5S happens at such breakneck speed. So the time that a shopper takes to walk through the store is now completed with a nod of a head and move of the eyeballs. That's how fast it moves in traditional trade.
Yeah.
And that is where the entire 5S has to work. You don't have as much time. You've got to work really sharply for all of it to work in a matter of seconds. And the closer you are to the shopper, therefore, the better chance of being visible to the shopper.
Okay, fair. And before we jump on to, front of shop, how do you get the product closer to shopper, like you said? There is very little space which is in front of the store or which is in front of the shopkeeper.
Okay.
A general trade store has a lot of stuff stocked behind them. Now, so therefore, what you're saying is that if you're in back of shop or you're behind the retailer, etc., somewhere there, you have no chance.
almost always you're missed if you're stored at the back of the store.
Okay.
Because unless you come asking for that specific product, which is usually the repeat buy, and the new brands are looking to drive trials. So unless it is a sought after specific repeat purchase, back of store presence has almost plays no role in a brand being picked up. The other point you made, Sudeep, about space being constrained in GT, I understand why you'd say that, and that's usually the popular perception also. But there are different formats of GT. And looking at space as a constraint is not really the outlook. It's almost a myth. There is enough space for you to play with. Now, how you do it is pretty much the game. For an unplanned category and for an impulse purchase, if you can say, sitting at the back of the store is just not going to help. You have to find a way to be front of store. There are certain categories that give up the front of store where the retail environment is not necessarily theirs. And there are certain categories that have to sit on the counter to get the customer's attention. Or not necessarily at the counter, just be visible at the front of store.
Okay. I think the aerial visibility of pouches would have gotten born by that need.
Very likely, because one, the sachets had to be hung, and hanging them in front, they're fast moving, and therefore they pick up. But I was talking to Mahesh about this, Mahesh Muthuswamy, the shopper marketing expert from Cadbury.
Yeah.
Was from Cadbury. I think he's now with L'Oreal.
Yeah.
Talking to him. And he mentioned people don't look up when they're shopping in GT, which I thought was very curious because I had the same question. If the sachets are hung on top, why wouldn't people be looking up? So looking up is never really the shopper behavior, apparently.
Yeah.
They look at eye level. And most of the sachets that are hung in a store are usually the planned categories.
Yeah.
And therefore, it is just convenience which is started there. And now people want to load those streamers to block visibility. But it's just an evolution from that point. And being above eye level is not necessarily fruitful for visibility for the shopper.
Yeah, possibly. See, what is above eye level when you're standing at the counter within your visibility arena when you're walking to the store?
Possibly, yeah.
So I remember when I used to handle gems, at that point in time, we used to see significant difference in stores where we were able to get gems hangers out versus where gems were kept even within the Cadbury Visicooler. Kept within the Visicooler, kids would go watching there when they're looking for a chocolate.
Okay. Kids look at the sachets hanging.
When it is hanging, for kids, as I keep saying, for all kids brand managers, this is a bad dream because you're competing with almost everything that can capture their attention.
Oh, yeah.
They will set out from home to buy a chocolate and they will go back home with a tennis ball. How do you compete with that? Yeah. So
attention deficit disorder.
Yeah. So they have no rhyme or reason.
Right.
They will pick up whatever draws their attention. So therefore, the need for attention is real. When they're walking to a shop, they're looking around in the shop for something shiny, something that captures their attention.
Right.
So therefore, it always pays to have that additional aerial visibility because it is visible when they're walking in. You're right. When they're standing at the store, they might not be able to see it, but you will find Chupa Chups hanging there, Alpenliebe lollipops hanging there. Almost everybody has tried to make the use of that space.
Right. Maybe it's different for kids there. I mean, I get what you're saying. When they walk on, you get to see it. But kids, I think they normally have to look up to shop anything anyway. Maybe that's where it works for them.
Possibly. I don't know. Okay, fair. Now coming back to what you were saying, that brands have to attempt to get their product out, to get their product closer to the shopper.
Right.
Now, how do you suggest you do that?
Let's first understand the different kinds of GT store layouts that are there. The most traditional is the D-shaped, as in the shopper is standing outside the store and that there's one counter and there's a store that goes in as a D.
Yeah.
And the back of store is the farthest anyway.
Yeah.
And then you have the L and the U-shaped stores. Now in this, the shopper can walk into the store, but would still deal with over-the-counter sales. So the shopper has to ask for something with the person behind the counter. And here, they still interact with the front of store more than they interact with the back of store.
Back of store.
That's the farthest from them. So the entire counter space that is there in a U and L shape store, and even in the D's, like you mentioned, it's so cluttered. That becomes what you call your hot zone. You mentioned what you did for eclairs, where you did heat mapping of the eyeballs.
Yeah.
We do that. This is where the eyeballs fall. And that's pretty much where the eclairs jar sits. And the shoppers are seeing what is on the counter more than what's behind the salesman or the shopkeeper. And therefore, there are lesser eyeballs at the back of store, more eyeballs at the front of store. Now, this, you get the counter right. Then you have your window display. And this window display, I think FMCG is famous for. All companies do this. We decorate one shelf at a retailer and we call that the window display. But the retailers are also wise to this, right? So they create more windows in the store to give to as many companies as possible. So I remember when I was a salesman, we had to put up Bonvita windows. And I went around and none of the stores I could spot the Bonvita window. And all the stores that we were paying them for visibility. Then when I went and asked the retailers, they said, oh, it's there. And it's right above, right at the ceiling. Nobody's going to look at that. Again, eye level. Getting your window placement right is very, very critical. And because people, like we said, don't look up. Being at eye level is the right place to be. Now, there are options to go up, keep going up. Ideally, you shouldn't do that. Counter, window, largely is the place for the brand to play. Like, and you also mentioned sachets, and there are side hangers that also work. So all of this within, say, when you say don't look up, it's not about tilting the head up. It's about just the eyeballs going up and down to the sides, and therefore it does cover a certain degree of vision.
Okay, understood. And when you spoke about Bonvita, I was reminded that I think I have seen this at many chemist shops.
Right.
Not only Bonvita, but Horlicks windows are also, really up there because chemists are clear. All the accessible spaces are for medicines.
Yes.
Everything else can go wherever they want to. As long as they pay them money, they're happy.
Thank you for listening to COB, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharan Raghavan. Subscribe and learn more at cobcast.net. That's COBBCAST.net.
Now, there is this dichotomy. The larger stores, the food store and the high-end grocers, who will have a little bit of space, who will have, who can give you windows, etc., are the guys where anyways a consumer is going for planned purchase. And all the chotu stores, the panwala, the low-end grocer, etc., where they themselves are struggling for space. They could hold more stock if they had space. That's the poor guy is not even able to keep the stock.
Right.
So therefore, you are in no position to talk to him about visibility. It'll be, I wonder if the shopkeeper himself or herself is visible behind the stock. Right. So how should one think about this? So if GT visits are always going to be planned wherever you can plan visibility, what's even the point of visibility there?
All GT shopping is planned is a considerable myth. In fact, a lot of people say there are more planned purchases in GT than in MT. I don't necessarily agree, because you need to understand the different kinds of shopping mission. So very broadly put, you would have two kinds of shopping missions. One is routine and the other is ad hoc. Now, routine is something that you do at a particular frequency and more or less have the same list of products you want to buy. And when I say frequency, it doesn't really have to be once a month. It could be once a week or maybe even daily.
Okay.
So I remember that when we used to work at Cadbury House, it was a tradition for a lot of us after lunch to walk up to the panwala near the mall there.
Hirapanna.
Hirapanna, and pick up a pan. Now, that is a routine shopping experience. You're going there for pan, you're going there on a regular frequency. Then you have ad hoc. Now, ad hoc is when you need something urgently. Maybe you want to gift it to somebody, you're feeling thirsty, you're hungry for something, you've forgotten a soap, your soap is over. So all of this are ad hoc. So the trip is not necessarily planned or scheduled, but you know what you exactly want to buy.
Okay. But still, both seemed like planned visits to me.
Yeah, both. So nobody goes to a GT or an empty store where they don't want to buy something, because there's always intention. What they do after they go to the store that decides the impulse purchases.
So when you say what they buy at the store, so therefore the visit can be planned, but the purchase can be impulse.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So let's say you go to a modern trade store. You have a list of 20 items to buy. And you recall that you've forgotten something. You see an offer there. Then you recall, maybe I need this too. And you buy. That is still impulse. So there are different kinds of impulse, right? So when you're reminded of something that you need and you forgot to put on the list, that's called the reminder impulse. So you go to a store, you do not have Vim bar on your list, but you see Vim bar there. Then you I forgot to put my dishwash bar on the list. Then you pick it up. That is a reminder impulse.
Okay.
Then you are in the habit of buying one soap at a time. Empty or GT, doesn't matter. You go to the store, you see there's an offer for 3+1 running, and you decide it's good value for money, and you pick that up. That is called an opportunistic impulse.
Okay.
Where you're making use of the opportunity to save money, or you think it's great value for it. And the third is what we always talk about. It's called the instinctive impulse. You go to the store. Let's say you're going to the store for a pan. You see a cool drink there. You say, it's a hot day, I want to have a cool drink. You pick it up. That's instinctive. You go to a store, you see such beautifully displayed Cadbury Visi coolers, and you feel like having a chocolate. You pick that up. That is instinctive impulse. So there is reminder impulse, opportunistic impulse, and there is instinctive impulse. When we talk of impulse, marketers and brand owners usually talk only about instinctive impulse, forgetting the other two.
All of these impulses have to have some kind of trigger.
Right.
Yeah, which usually would be part of your in-store experiences.
Absolutely.
Now, I am a brand owner. I want to create some of these cues. What are the mediums that are available to me?
This is a very simple framework. You need to look at merchandising, which is pretty much the topic for today. So there are 5 P's of merchandising. One is placement. We spoke about this. Where is the product placed in the store?
Yeah.
Second is product assortment. Do you have the right kind of SKUs for that store? There's no point selling a 5 kg bag of rice in a pawn shop. That's not what the shopping trip is for. Then price. Do you have the right price to sell? I'm not saying the lowest price. Do you have the right price to sell? Then you have the POB communication. What is your message at the point of buying to the shopper? And number 5 is promotion. Are you offering a good enough incentive for the shopper to make the purchase? So I'll repeat the 5 P's. Placement.
Yeah.
Product assortment. Pricing.
Yeah.
POB communication.
Yeah.
And promotion.
Okay. And for the uninitiated, POB is point of buying.
Point of buying.
Okay.
POS and POB are pretty much the same.
Yeah.
It's called point of sale or point of buying.
Yes. Okay. So what you're saying is one can ride all these 5 to create some kind of a cue which will trigger one of the impulses that we spoke about.
Absolutely.
Okay. Fair. Now that you say this, so therefore it seems like a new brand that is entering the store has many more options apart from just promotion.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And promotion is just one of the levers that the brand has to use. When you say promotion, it's a price discounting is what we're talking about. But it could be any kind of promotion. It's just one of the 5 levers in the store for you to move the stock from the retailer to the shopper. And it's not about discounting all the time.
Yeah.
It's about making sure you are at a certain price that is viable for the shopper to pick up. So, and you can communicate that on your POB. You don't have to communicate only discounts. So I remember when Oreo launched, I think even now, rupees 10, that Oreo was available for rupees 10 was the communication point. You're not saying we're giving a discount on Oreo, but Oreo is available at 10 rupees was the key.
Yeah.
And that was that was a mindful utilization of the POB space. Now, there's also another way to use promotion or POB communicating price is to justify the price you're charging.
Okay.
I remember we did this when I was on Tang. Tang was the largest selling pack for Tang was 500 grams, the half kilo pack. And it was selling at about roughly 100 rupees then.
Yeah, 110, I think. Yeah.
Now it must have gone up. At that time, it was 100, 98, 100, 110. So we were competing with the ready-to-drink beverages, which were selling at 30 rupees for half a liter. So we first tried putting down number of glasses the bag would make, the bag of 500 grams would make. That wouldn't register with a lot of people. Then what we did is we launched just enough Tang, the 125 grams in a pack, which would make 1 liter of Tang, and called it the 1 liter pack of Tang. We didn't hero the grammage. Grammage was there on the pack for regulatory requirements. We called it the 1 liter pack. So suddenly you were now price on par or even lower. So I think 30 rupees for half a liter, was it 25 rupees for 1 liter of Tang? So that's how you could communicate and justify the pricing you have without offering a discount.
Okay.
That is also communication at the point of sale.
I remember I was in sales then. I must say that, that one was successful, quite successful. It sold very well.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether it sold very well because of the communication or the bottle you were giving free with it.
That is the promotion.
Correct. That's the promotion. So that's how marketers justify the sale by hiding the promotion and by talking only about the communication on the pack.
Absolutely.
Correct. No, but brilliant example. I think that's a way to, for the marketer to think about, promoting their brand, getting their brand into consideration by relooking at the 4 Ps. Yeah. Maybe you can leave the product out because product is already decided. The other 3, you can certainly influence. And hence, you will see a lot of multi-packs, bundled packs, etc., which make their way into GT and MT, specifically because of some shopper understanding that they must have developed in one of the stores.
Right. So the 4 Ps they're talking about are Philip Kotler's marketing 4 Ps.
Yeah.
And the 5 Ps I'm talking about are Mahesh Muthuswami's 5 Ps of shopper marketing.
Correct. Brilliant. I think I love the chain of thought here, Sharan. 5S is equally relevant in GT, although the first 3 deal with placement of the product. Yeah, but they are equally relevant and can be triggered by variety of mechanisms. GT is not always about planned purchase. There's a lot of impulse that also happens,
right?
And hence the importance of shopper marketing in a GT store. We spoke about the importance of being in the front of store in one way or the other. You gave the example of also
it could be as simple as a poster
or any kind of POB window, etc. Yeah. And you also spoke about the fact that even back of store, while the back of store is always too far from the consumer, but the space behind the shopkeeper, etc., while not as preferable as front of store, but can be leveraged well if you use it at the eye level.
Right.
Otherwise it just becomes not amenable to the plain eyesight and therefore doesn't pay back. Yeah.
Right.
One of your key point was that it is important to have some kind of a communication on POS or point of buying. Yeah, which showcases your brand or makes your brand stand out to the consumer. Therefore you spoke about 5 Ps, that once all those 5 Ps allow you to create some kind of cues which can trigger the three kind of impulse purchase that we spoke about. Right now, I understood all of this. This is partly the summary of whatever you've said thus far.
Mm-hmm.
The question that I wanted to ask you also was that, in the absence of any shopper marketing, I have seen a number of brands relying on, just putting in volumes of stock at a shop,
Right.
and then saying if you put in sufficient stock, the visibility will always be there.
Absolutely. That
Yeah.
is very true.
So is that a good strategy?
It is. Just that as an early brand, you might not have the capability to put in as much stock as you want to in a store, because the stock a store will take is also commensurate to the amount of offtake the brand is going to generate.
Okay.
I'll give you an example. While you're talking about GT, I'll give you a modern trade example where I was the area manager for Henkel and I was the key account manager for Spencer's for Henkel in Chennai. And we had this was 2005 when I was just starting my career. We had Henko Matic, which was among the first machine wash detergents after Surf Excel Matic.
Yeah.
And I would sell about 110 to 120 pieces a month on an average of that. There was a system error one day. And instead of 120, the person punched in 320.
Okay.
And I was just happy I got the sale order. I billed it. Then the person was so upset with me. Why did you supply it? You know it's an error. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't think it was that big a deal. But what that did was the stock went to the stores for Spencer's. So you had 3 times more stock in the store than the actual sale. That month, we sold about 250 pieces. And the sale for Henko Matic never came down below 220 after that.
Nice.
Just stock weight driving sale.
Correct. So that's the wholesale way of thinking.
Yes.
Applied to modern trade.
Jo dikhta hai wo bikta hai.
Correct. So, and thereby, rather than shopper governing the demand, our friend Sharan is using computer virus to generate demand.
I think that's the only thing sales guys haven't tried. I think that should be next.
Correct.
Computer virus for automated orders.
Correct. Okay, excellent. So let me now, continue on my train of thought. So therefore, we summarized some part of it. When you were talking about impulse, you spoke about 3 kind of impulse.
Right.
You spoke about reminder impulse.
Yeah.
Where you are reminded of something that was possibly about to finish and you didn't include it in your shopping list. Right. Then there is something called opportunistic impulse.
Right.
Where we spoke about the fact that you anyways wanted to buy something, but an offer or some kind of a pack forced you to upweight or upstock.
Buy more, yeah.
And the third part is instinctive impulse, which possibly a lot of marketers and sales guys focus on, which is about saying that making things noticeable so that you might feel like buying them.
Right.
Yeah, that's what all your cash tills, etc. work upon.
Absolutely.
Yeah, something that can get missed. And you spoke about the fact that all these 3 impulses required some kind of cues, and those cues can be placed on any of the 5 P's. Can depend on any of the 5 P's, and the 5 P's of shopper marketing were placement, product assortment, pricing, point of buying communication, and promotion.
Correct.
Right. And so therefore this also possibly answers a question as to if you're a new brand, promotion is not the only lever.
Absolutely.
You have the other 4 available, and you have Sharan's tried and tested stock weight driven by virus model. You can
dumping
use
stock into
dumping
a store.
stock, and you can try that. It will certainly pay back. What we are, in essence saying that the principles of shopper marketing in modern trade as well as general trade remain the same. The activation levers might differ a bit because of the store construct, because we spoke about D-type store, U-type store, and L-type store. So therefore the space available, the areas accessible to the shopper, etc. might differ, but the principles essentially remain the same. And hence this episode should serve as an opportunity or as an invitation to all the new brand owners to not really fear GT, but consider putting their brand out there and use some of these principles to scientifically build sales, irrespective of the fact that shopkeepers might not seem friendly or seem very amenable to start with.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sharan.
Thank you for listening to COB, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharan Raghavan. Subscribe and learn more at cobcast.net. That's COBBCAST.net.